You are listening to Becoming Wildly Resilient, brought to you by University of Kentucky Human Resources Health and Wellness. Join us as we explore tools, practices, meditations, and conversations with members of the UK community. Together, we will discover how we can thrive at work, home, and beyond. Hello, everyone. I'm Amy Rodquist-Kodet, health coach with the University of Kentucky Health and Wellness Program. Welcome to Becoming Wildly Resilient Practices, where we'll explore research-based tools and tips that help us thrive more in the areas of life that matter most. And this month, we're talking about burnout and overwhelm in the midst of the holidays. Specifically, how can we unlock the stress cycle? And the holidays can be a really challenging time. So what are some research-based ways that you can support yourself, your well-being, your calm, even in the midst of difficult family gatherings, budgetary constraints, a really, really full calendar, and longing to search for meaning and connection in the midst of all the busyness? So one of my favorite books that talks about stress is a book by identical twin sisters, Doctors Amelia and Emily Nagoski. They read a great book a few years ago called Burnout: The Secret to Unlocking the Stress Cycle. And in their book, they talk about the difference between stress and stressors. And they say, the good news is that stress is not the problem. It's how we deal with stress, not what causes it, that releases the stress, completes the cycle, and ultimately keeps us from burning out. So we can't control every external stressor that comes our way. And I found this to be so helpful. They were talking about the goal isn't to live in a state of perpetual balance and peace and calm. Instead, the goal is to move through the stress to calm so that you're ready. Here's the bad news for the next stressor that is coming around the mountain. I'm imagining this big game of whack-a-mole. You knock out one stressor and then up pops the next one. And then you knock that one down with the big mallet, and then there comes 6 more all at the same time. And so their idea of moving through the stress cycle is all about stress being a biological response to anything that the brain perceives as a threat. So like all biological processes, it has a beginning and a middle and an end. So if we can move all the way through the stress response cycle, we stay healthier. Imagine it like a big tunnel. And if we can't clear the tunnel, if stressor after stressor after stressor builds and builds and builds, we get a log jam. The tunnel, it gets all bundled up and we get stuck. And so we're going to be talking about 7 research-based, actionable ways that you can help your body move through the stressors that are inevitably coming this holiday and every other day of the year as well. Number 1, a way to practice moving through the stress cycle is physical activity. Probably not a surprise to anybody here. Physical activity is what successfully tells our brain that we survived the threat. And now our body is a safe place to be again. And this comes from our ancestors, the cavemen and women who were running from the saber-toothed tiger. The way that they moved through those stress hormones, the cortisol, the adrenaline, is they ran it out, literally back to the cave to stay alive. The thing is, thankfully, that the majority of us probably listening to this podcast aren't running for our lives. And so when our stress rises in our body, when those hormones pump through our system, we need a way to move them out and burn them off. and that is physical. You have to use your body. And since stress is physical activity is the best way to end some of those stress cycles. It doesn't mean you need to go for a 15-mile run, but it does mean you gotta get your heart a pumping at least for 5 minutes. Run some stairs, do a really brisk walk around the block so that you are huffing and puffing. One of my favorite ways is to put on my favorite music and dance it out in the kitchen and really, really move. Figure out, how do you like to move your body? How can you get your heart pumping and move through the stress? Number 2, positive social interaction. So a casual social interaction is an external sign to our brains and our bodies that the world is a mostly safe, sane place. And the majority of the people on a day-to-day basis aren't trying to hurt us. When you are out and about these holidays, see if you can stop and really make a small moment of connection with somebody in your world. Maybe it's just wishing the barista at your local coffee shop a pleasant day. Maybe it's striking up a conversation with the person behind you in line at the Kroger, telling her she's got some awesome rain boots, or talking about something you're going to do later that afternoon. It doesn't have to be anything big, just a nod and a smile, being mindful, taking a breath, and reminding yourself you're safe. Number 3, think about creativity. Another way to care for ourselves in the midst of stress is to figure out a way that you like to be creative. This doesn't mean you need to be a professional artist or a musician. It might be trying a new recipe, or painting one of those paint by numbers, or knitting or gardening, or doing something with your hands, reorganizing a drawer. How do you like to be creative? What little creative endeavor speaks to you? This holiday season, what can you do to find your calm through your creativity? Start there. Number 4, laughter. When we can laugh together with somebody else, or even just by ourselves, maybe watching a hilarious cat video or something ridiculous on TikTok, it's a way to release and express our emotions that might be getting stuck inside. Emotions are like those tunnels we were talking about. If you go all the way through them, you can get to the light at the end of them. A really interesting bit of research from neuroscientist Sophie Scott suggests that there's this ancient evolutionary system that mammals have evolved to make and maintain social bonds through laughter, meaning that we regulate our emotions, especially our stress emotions, when we hear genuine laughter coming from other people or ourselves. We begin to feel safe. So this holiday, find yourself some joy in the midst of these tricky times. What makes you laugh? What is a bit of levity you can be intentional about bringing into your life? Number 5, affection. Physical affection helps your body release trust and bonding hormones like oxytocin. Those are the ones that chase away the sense of danger in our bodies. As our hormones shift, our heart rate slows and our body begins to feel safe. So you don't have to have just a romantic partner in order to feel physical affection. Just somebody who you feel safe with, giving you a long, strong hug. Maybe time with a loving pet. Petting and cuddling animals can lower our blood pressure, as well as connecting with meaning and spirituality. There's a lot of research linked to reading sacred texts, journaling, prayer, meditation. All of those things can release our body's calm response in our parasympathetic nervous system. Number 6, a big cry. You heard that right. I said cry it out, y'all. Crying is for everybody, not just babies. And babies know, because it's good for them. It helps to get the attention of adults in their worlds to get a good response. And now as adults, Crying is one of our body's mechanisms to release stress. So I know it's probably not the best idea to have a major sob fest at work, at your desk. Folks might be super concerned, but it is important to allow those feelings to come out when we feel safe enough to do so. Maybe you're at home. Feel free to watch a tearjerker movie. That might be a way to help that cry response. Going through the emotion with characters in a movie or listening to music that elicits deep emotion. All of this allows us to complete that stress cycle with tears. So if crying it out is a way that feels really helpful and supportive to you, go for it. And number 7, the breath. Deep, slow breaths can help regulate our stress response, especially when the exhale is long and slow and goes all the way to the end of our belly so our stomach contracts. Research suggests that breathing is one of the most effective ways to siphon off the difficult stress. When we need to unlock a bit of calm for ourselves, maybe before you're going into a tough family situation, maybe when you know that your schedule is really, really packed, what can you do to be intentional about bringing the breath to this moment? Jackie is going to lead us through a couple tools that you can use to elicit that calm response in the breath. So this holiday season, remember that you don't have to be perfect at this. Give your body permission to experience those difficult emotions, to listen to what's going on deeper inside, and to respond. The Nagoski sisters say that wellness is not a state of being, it's a state of action. It's the freedom to oscillate through the cycles of being human. So this real world wellness is messy and complicated. So what can you do in the moment when you feel overwhelmed and exhausted? How can you use some of these tools? And remember, you're not doing it wrong. It just means you're moving through the process. So try out some of these tools. Put them together, kind of link them, and maybe you can use physical activity with some breath, with maybe some connection as well. Think to yourself, how do you want to move through the stress cycle in a way that feels authentic and connective to who you are and who you want to be? So thanks for joining me today and for practicing together, because practice makes possible. And that's how we become more wildly resilient. So until next time, keep practicing and be well. Thank you for listening to Becoming Wildly Resilient. This podcast is brought to you by University of Kentucky Human Resources, Health and Wellness. We offer a wide range of online and in-person services to support the well-being of UK employees, retirees, and their spouses. You can find experts in mental health, personal resilience, nutrition, and physical activity. We're ready to meet you where you are and address your unique needs. To learn more about the work-life and well-being services offered by UK Human Resources, visit hr.uky.edu/wellbeing. You can also connect with us on social media and YouTube by searching at UKY Wellness or by email at healthandwellness@uky.edu.